Israelites had just entered into the promised land and the struggles they faced during that time. So as before, I will be reading from the King James Version, the NIV, and the Message to give a good overarching picture of what's being said. So we will start with the King James Version. So, the Book of Judges, chapter 2. And this will be the whole chapter. Let me just move the book up a bit. Israel rebuked by an angel. And an angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum, and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you unto the land which I swear unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochum, and they sacrificed there unto the Lord. And when Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died being 110 years old, and they buried him in the border of his inheritance to Timnath-Heres, in the mountain of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gash. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them, for evil, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went on whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they did not do so. And when the Lord raised them up, judges, then the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For repented the Lord because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. And it came to pass, my voice. I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died, that through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it, or not. Therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. And now we'll read that same version in the NIV, or the same passage in the NIV. The Old Testament is a fascinating set of books to read. It can be quite dry and hard going, but when you see the repeated rejection of God by his own people after he'd done so much for them, it's quite eye-opening. Okay, so this goes off the page. So we have got trying to get this to focus a bit better. Just trying to get this to focus. Come on. There we go. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochum, and said, I brought you up out of Egypt, and led you into the land that I swore to give to your forefathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? Now therefore I tell you that I will not drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called that place Bochum, which means weepers. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to his own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After that whole generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation grew up, who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their forefathers, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They provoked the Lord to anger, because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord handed them over to raiders who plundered them. He sold them to their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them. They were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges, who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods and worshipped them. Unlike their fathers, they quickly turned from the way in which their fathers had walked, the way of obedience to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies, as long as the judge lived. For the Lord had compassion on them, as they groaned under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to ways even more corrupt than those of their fathers. Following other gods and serving and worshipping them, they refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, "Because this nation has violated the covenant that I laid down for their forefathers, and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did." The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. And now I will read that same passage again from the Message. A time came. Oh no, that's Judges chapter 1. I want Judges chapter 2. There we go. Come on. Let's try and get this to focus. There you go. God's angel went up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, "I brought you out of Egypt. I led you to the land that I promised to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. Never. And you're never to make a covenant with the people who live in this land. Tear down their altars. But you haven't obeyed me. What's this that you're doing? So now I'm telling you that I won't drive them out before you. They'll trip you up, and their gods will become a trap." When God's angel had spoken these words to all the people of Israel, they cried out, "Oh, how they wept!" They named the place Bochum, weepers, and there they sacrificed to God. After Joshua had dismissed them, the people of Israel went off to claim their allocated territories and take possession of the land. The people worshipped God throughout the lifetime of Joshua and the time of the leaders who survived him, leaders who had been in on all of God's great work that he had done for Israel. Then Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of God, died. He was 110 years old. They buried him in his allotted inheritance at Timnath-Heres in the hills of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. Eventually that entire generation died and was buried. Then another generation grew up that didn't know anything of God or the work he had done for Israel. The people of Israel did evil in God's sight. They served Baal gods. They deserted God, the God of their parents, who had led them out of Egypt. They took up with other gods, gods of the peoples around them. They actually worshipped them. And oh, how they angered God as they worshipped God Baal and goddess Astarte. God's anger was hot against Israel. He handed who stripped them. He sold them cheap to enemies on all sides. They were helpless before their enemies. Every time they walked out the door, God was with them, but for evil. Just as God had said, just as he had sworn he would do. They were in a bad way. But then God raised up judges who saved them from their plunderers. But they wouldn't listen to their judges. They prostituted themselves to other gods, worshipped them. They lost no time leaving the road walked by their parents, the road of obedience to God's commands. They refused to have anything to do with it. When God was setting up judges for them, he would be right there with the judge. He would save them from their enemies' oppression as long as the judge was alive. For God was moved to compassion when he heard their groaning because of those who afflicted and beat them. But when the judge died, the people went right back to their old ways, but even worse than their parents, running after other gods, serving and worshipping them, stubborn as mules. They didn't drop a single evil practice. And God's anger blazed against Israel. He said, because these people have thrown out my covenant that I commanded their parents and haven't listened to me, I'm not driving out one more person from the nations that Joshua left behind when he died. I'll use them to test Israel and see whether they stay on God's road or walk down it as their parents did. That's why God let those nations remain. He didn't drive them out or let Joshua get rid of them. I think it is one recurring theme that I found when reading through the Old Testament was that even despite the frequent times the Israelites turned their backs on God, the frequent times they disobeyed him and behaved in an evil manner, God still had compassion for them. And when he heard their groans and their distress, he was still moved with compassion. And this can be seen in the way that he sent his son to die on our behalf, so that we could finally, this constant cycle of repentance and sinning, turning back